In the past, herding sheep took a village, but today, shepherds rely on their oldest, most loyal companion, the canine. The majestic border collie, as it has been bred to do for decades, pans out across the open field with speed and endurance to wrangle the flock and prod them from place to place. Not a single one ever goes astray. Its natural instinct to herd sheep is akin to complete end-to-end accounts payable automation. Wait, so DoApp is a dog and an AP solution? I guess I'll keep reading.
Take two.
Prized for its intelligence, work ethic, and lovable demeanor, DoApp drives efficiency, solving the headaches of outdated manual processes. DoApp guides AP teams across the Microsoft Dynamics 365 finance pastures. The goal? To wrangle all invoices in a timely and cost-effective manner. Oh, so the sheep are the invoices. This makes sense now.
Take seven.
A fast and eager learner, DoApp is best of breed in machine learning and AI. With optimizations to the AP process, DoApp reduces repetitive and tedious tasks so that AP staff can engage in more critical, value-added assignments. And with DoApp by their side, management can have better visibility into cash flow, avoid payment fraud, and remain compliant. Don't settle for a dog that can't learn new tricks. Call on DoApp for all your accounts payable automation needs.
Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mark Brousseau, and during the next hour, we're going to share with you 4 bold predictions for accounts payable. And I'm pleased to be joined today by Mikko and Anna to provide their sage advice on what they're seeing coming in the market and how it is that accounts payable practitioners can prepare. You know, it struck me when I watched that video when they talked about new tricks. It seems like accounts payable leaders have learned quite a few over the past 20 months. It's been said the change comes slowly to accounts payable, but 20 months ago, seemingly everything changed, and it changed overnight. We've settled into new ways of working, new operational challenges, new risks, and new pressures to provide reporting. Now comes the hard part: preparing our departments for the future that lies ahead. And today, Mikko and Anna and I are going to share with you what we see as the biggest trends that you need to be prepared for in the future as you position your department for growth and success. Before we get started, I want to give Mikko a few moments to tell you a little bit about the sponsor of today's webinar, DoApp. Mikko?
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. And welcome everybody on my behalf to the webinar too. So before we actually let it over to Mark, just a few words on DoApp. So DoApp is a software company. We've been around for a little over five years. What we're really focused is AP automation, and we're going to talk a lot about that later on today and Mark's predictions. And hopefully we're able to answer some of the questions that you're having. We're very focused on the Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem, so we support Dynamics 365 F&O and AX 2012. We got 50 plus clients currently. Most of them are in North America. And I think if we look at overall the company, where we're really focused is growing our customer volume as part of that, keeping our clients really happy, which is something that we're particularly proud of. And if we look at it over time, everybody's pretty much that has started with us, has stayed with us. And if we look at our customer satisfaction, it's very good, and we want to keep it that way. So that's briefly about DoApp. So over to you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Mikko. Look forward to your insights today. So what's our first prediction for accounts payable in 2022? Well, it's that machine learning is going to be the table stakes. That brings us to our first poll question, which is about to be displayed on your screen. In order to see the poll, we want you to go ahead and click on the poll button in the lower right-hand side of your screen, and please click on the response and hit submit. We want to know, does your AP department currently use machine learning as part of its invoice processing? Yes? No? No, but planning to within 12 months, or no, but planning to within 12 to 24 months? Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed in your screen. And we're going to discuss those results in just a moment. So, Anna, in a study released late last year, the Institute of Finance and Management found that 77% of accounts payable departments here in the United States now have some type of technology in their AP department. Now, that's not to say that they're doing end-to-end automation like Miko just referenced a few moments ago, but they have something. It seems to me that today we've settled the debate about the importance of automation, and now we're looking for better ways to automate our department. Is that an accurate assessment of what's going on today in AP?
Absolutely, and in finance in general, things where machine learning is typically used is the situations where patterns can be based on previous invoices, and then you can utilize that information. So it's about the data. Typically, these are like coding, routing, matching. Those are kind of the non-brainers for it. But how it can be now utilized in the future, there is more complex things like discrepancy management or things like that. For this question, most of our customers are using machine learning, or at least testing with the available functionality, because you can always, of course, test. But if you want to do manual, of course, that is always there.
What's the biggest misperception about machine learning, Anna?
Well, probably that it's hard and cumbersome to take into use. So, of course, the software usually supports that. It has to be easy. It has to be something that you don't have to do configurations for.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who's on the line today and has some sort of an invoice processing solution that doesn't use machine learning? What are they missing out on?
Well, I would I would want to show them what they're missing out of course. So thinking that I think there is a saturation point on how much you can do with rule-based. So at some point you have to give up and then start using machine learning where it learns by itself. Excuse me, sorry.
We asked our attendees, does your AP department currently use machine learning as part of its invoice processing? 40% of our attendees today, Anna, say that they're using machine learning in their department. Another 40% said no, they're not using the technology and they don't have plans to do so. Another 20% of our attendees say they aren't using the technology, but they plan to do so within the next 12 months. All right, this is your chance. What do you want to say to those 40% of folks who aren't using the technology and they have plans to do so? No plans to do so.
I think that's well, I hope today we can kind of convince you otherwise, because there is so much things that you can achieve without actually doing too much work.
And that brings us to our next slide. When we think about any discussion about AP automation, it ought to be framed around just that. What is it that you're trying to achieve in AP? And when AP leaders were surveyed earlier this year about what it is their top priorities for improvement are, 5 things really came out in the front. Obviously, cost reduction is number one. Today, all across the corporate enterprise, departments are being asked to do more with less. And this isn't going to change even as the economy gets on firmer footing. Secondly, organizations are looking for ways to better manage their spending. In many cases, they're trying to free up cash so they can invest it back in the business, typically for growth generating activities. Organizations are also looking for enhanced visibility. They want to be able to get visibility of what's going on with their cash flow, their spending, their operational performance, even the risks. Additionally, organizations are looking for ways to facilitate collaboration, not just in the department, but across the organization. And today we know that when we talk about collaboration across the organization, that doesn't mean just across the office building. It could mean across town, or even across the globe. And finally, organizations are looking for ways to better manage their working capital. And if there's one lesson businesses have learned over the past 20 months, it's that they've got to get a handle on their cash flow. And when we look at the next slide, what we see is that achieving all of that is a little bit more challenging for organizations, particularly those of you who are using manual or semi-automated approaches to invoice processing. Today, this move to remote and hybrid working, well, it's really disrupted the way that accounts payable departments have worked. And that has created a lot of new challenges for AP leaders. First and foremost among them, 25% of AP leaders say they're struggling with fraud and compliance issues. We know that hardened policies and procedures for how it is that invoices should get processed and payments should get paid, they were thrown out the window when we sent our people home to work. We need to get control over things. Another 22% of organizations say they're struggling with a spike in supplier increase. That economic downturn and uncertainty we've had since then, well, that's really put the cash crunch on your suppliers. They want to know where things stand with their invoices and payments. They want to be sure they're going to get paid as soon as possible. Another 20% of AP leaders say that they're struggling to pay their invoices on time. This makes perfect sense. A lot of us are trying to adapt paper processes into this remote work environment. Some of you are using email, yes, email to route invoices around, and this is creating new challenges. You can't get visibility into somebody's email box to see what they've done with that invoice. And so invoice due dates are becoming a struggle. And all of this is where machine learning comes in. As Anna said, machine learning does 5 critical things, and you'll see those on our next slide. Number one, it helps us identify patterns, and that could be in vast data sets. So we're talking about a technology that's easily scalable. What's more, it helps us uncover correlations. It makes those connections that we used to have to rely on business analysts to find for us. And once it's got that data and it's identified those correlations and patterns, now it can help us make decisions to accelerate those workflows, help us predict what will happen as a result of those decisions. And the crazy thing about machine learning is that it improves over time. That's right. The more data, the more experiences, the more decisions it gets to partake in and observe, the better its results. This has big implications for accounts payable departments. Next slide. When we think about all those things that it is accounts payable departments are trying to achieve, reduce costs, get better visibility into cash and spend, and be able to accelerate cycle times, this was tailor-made for machine learning. And Anna, there's a lot of applications for machine learning in accounts payable. You want to give us a couple examples of what your DoApp customers have in mind?
Well, there is, I would say that there is certain main categories for machine learning development that we're doing. There is, we're trying to automate something that is manual. We want to recognize what the users could automate so they don't have to do that in the future. And then there is the analytics side, and the analytical side is growing fastest. I think that this is what we need most in 10 years. And then the automation part is what we need immediately, actually already on yesterday. So these are the things that we do want to focus in getting machine learning into work.
Yeah, you talked about 10 years, but over the past 2 years, digital transformation initiatives have really accelerated. And this is a great time for technologies like machine learning. Talk to us, Anna, about how this new normal in which you're operating in, how that's impacted the accounts payable departments you're talking to.
Well, of course, how the recent past years went, like you already said, these kind of crises push digital payments and digital finance forward. It's forced. When kind of with our clients and with the customers that we were just implementing, they were pretty much safe when this started, and you couldn't be over in the office to get those invoices there. And when all the companies were pushed more to digital side, it started from the accounts receivable side. Funnily, people noticed that, hey, we're not getting paid if we send out paper invoices. And that brought us new problems. So, for example, there is whole set of problems when everything is digital, and then fraud, for example, comes in place. Like you already said, and you showed the 25% has been the concern in fraud attempts. There has been increases during the pandemic because it is a perfect environment for it.
Yeah.
But modern problems, modern solutions, and the possibilities here, for example, using artificial intelligence, which machine learning is, for spotting fraud. So here are kind of the good examples. We use machine learning to recognize anomalies in the data, and you can actually spot like suspicious vendors. If there is from old vendors, you get new payment methods, new payment addresses. Why is it accurate, or is there's some kind of a fraud invoice in between accurate ones? And if you really dig into things, there is also things that you can just recognize from invoice numbers. And still, the best thing is that I don't have to figure out the things, what to look for. Artificial intelligence will look for those odd ones out instead of kind of on its own, without me.
Mikko, this sounds really compelling to me. How do you see machine learning evolving in accounts payable over the next 5 years?
Yeah, Mark, I would actually go back to a bit what you said earlier, that do more with less. And I guess Anna gave some great examples of the applications, but I think it's the same as with AP team and other teams, that you always got to just get more done. And I think what in the kind of wider context, what machine learning is going to do, kind of the data entry part, and let's say kind of the things that we do day to day, that's going to be less in the focus, but then we can actually more focus on the exceptions and complicated things. So essentially, it's going to give us more time. And I think that's probably the biggest application of it. So it kind of makes our life easier so that we can focus on something else. So we can just get more done with the same amount of people working in the organization. I think that's kind of one guiding principle that I have in my mind.
In today's labor shortage, that's music to an AP leader's ears, Mikko. So Anna, talk to me. How is it that DoApp is using machine learning in its solutions today?
Well, pretty much those aspects that I did list. So everything that is manual, try to automate that. Try to find out what could be automated even more, and then of course the analytical side. But from the kind of what my aspect was with this, that what is the paradigm change in what AP is used for. So in the future, the futuristic ideas is that there will not be the finance teams at some point. So in that point, what do you do with an AP solution? You use it for analytics. You need it for that deeper dive. You need to use it for the information.
Yeah, clearly this is a great use of artificial intelligence technology. I'm curious, Anna, do you see more for AI in the future? How do you see AI broadly evolving over the next several years?
Yeah, fully automating what we do now can be easily done. And what we need to do in the future is more complicated. So I don't think that we're in even the risk that, okay, we automate everything and that's it, and no one has to anymore have that finance team. No, there is a lot of things that need to happen still. And the changes there, what the future is, it is going to affect a lot of the structure on how organizations work, because financial talent is going to be needed in every business unit. And as the machine learning in that sense does develop, and you don't have to actually do those manual tasks anymore, then the accounting, reporting, and compliance are the things that we do so much less. and we focus on analysis, prediction, and decision support.
You know, the way I see it, Anna Miko, is that AI and machine learning helps eliminate all of those things, those manual, repetitive tasks that nobody wants to do, and frees us up for more fulfilling, higher value activities. And that brings us to our second prediction, which is North America takes a big step towards electronic invoicing. Let's start with the poll question, which is about to be displayed on your screen. This time we want to know, how has the volume of invoices that your AP department receives via snail mail changed over the past 2 years? Are you getting significantly fewer snail mailed invoices, a 10% decrease or more? Are you getting slightly fewer snail mailed invoices, up to a 10% decrease? Has there been no change? You're just getting as many paper invoices today as you were 2 years ago, or has it gone up? Are you getting slightly more or significantly more paper invoices? Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen. We're going to discuss the results in just a moment. And remember, click the result, hit submit, and we'll discuss them in just a moment. So, Anna, I guess this begs the question, this poll question is, why the devil do we still have so much paper here in the United States and in North America?
Well, as I'm originally from Finland, which is a forest industry country, I'm kind of still happy that there is a lot of paper.
You have mixed feelings about this. Are you sure you want to get rid of that paper?
But my professional view is in AP is that paper will lead into trouble. So I'm expecting this result from the poll to be that it is going to be significantly lower, the amount of paper that is received, based on the facts that past few years have forced us towards it, and that is a good thing.
What is an electronic invoice, and what is it not, Anna?
Well, that is a good question. So what has happened in the past years is that immediately, without doing any investments, which has been easily on hold, people started just pushing out PDF invoices through mail. And that leads us to a new problem. We're still kind of hassling with those PDFs. We're moving them from box to box. We're saving them and losing them just as much as we lose paper. So real e-invoice is not any document that doesn't have intelligently the data already included. Something that we can use so that we don't have to capture it. We don't have to key it in. We don't have to do anything. We just get the invoice picture, we get that data that is embedded, and they go to the system accurately, fast, in real time.
And I would argue that emails are the new paper. We've got to do something about them as well. We asked our attendees, how is the volume of invoices that your AP department receives via snail mail changed over the past 2 years? 80% of our attendees, Anna Miko, say that they've experienced a significant reduction in the number of paper invoices they receive. 20% of our attendees said it's slightly lower. No one here is reporting they're getting more paper invoices compared to 2 years ago. I reckon that doesn't surprise you, Miko, does it?
No, it doesn't at all. And I think that is something we're seeing in our business too. Obviously, we want to be going paperless, and we've been there for a long time already, but you still get that odd paper invoice, but not anymore. I mean, we're not getting the real electronic invoices as we would like to, but anyway, there's no paper, which kind of makes life still a bit easier, even though, as you said, it's kind of a new paper. But for sure, we've seen this in our operations, that paper invoice is no longer the thing.
There's lots and lots of problems when it comes to paper and emailed invoices, as our next slide will show you. When we think about those invoice delivery channels, well, they cost too much. In many cases, you have manual labor, even with PDFs. I've spoke to a company recently who was pretty proud of themselves. They are now receiving nearly all of their invoices from suppliers via email. After all, no one could get into the office to open the mail last summer. one small problem with all that, their staff is actually working longer hours these days. What the devil's going on there? It turns out they're printing out all those PDF emails. They're rekeying stuff directly into their ERP. They're having all these inevitable issues with slowdowns in their processes, miskeyed data. And you know what? Nobody knows where any of these invoices stand in the process. After all, the AP manager can't see into somebody's Outlook box. And we all know that when those emailed invoices are being pushed around, that's throwing the door open wide to bad guys who want to try and infiltrate our systems. They want to impersonate legitimate senior executives and legitimate suppliers and trick us into making a payment to them and not to a legit supplier. This is the environment we're in, to say nothing of all the manual activities that paper and email take. Let's look at our next slide. I told you a little bit earlier that 77% of all AP departments today have some sort of AP automation technology. But another study from the past year found that 64% of all AP departments still manually handle most of the invoices that they receive. They seems to be in conflict with one another. That means that lots of automated departments are doing lots of manual handling. And that speaks to the opportunity for electronic invoicing. Next slide. When we think about why it is that we do all this manual handling of invoices here in North America, well, I would argue that a lack of invoicing standards is largely to blame. Next slide. What we find is that there's no way for us to have the same song sheet. So even though suppliers and buyers might have the best intentions, we simply don't know how it is that we should be exchanging all this data. So when I think about all of the manual keying and complexity and risk that occurs in accounts payable, and yes, even accounts receivable, it really does boil down to the fact that we have no way to be able to exchange information in what I'd call a frictionless manner. Well, an electronic invoice exchange framework market pilot hopes to do something about all of that. Anna, what is this thing and what's the objective here?
Well, the objective is to gather every company in the US that actually wants it to have an easy, low threshold access to exchange invoices inside the network. The idea is something that is used in other parts of the world, and we are kind of hoping to copy that model and adjust it to fit exactly what the US market really needs. And this is the first time that we see that actually the businesses in the market are coming together and trying to achieve a joint goal.
And the pilot will finally set a foundation for the streamlined exchange of invoices here in North America. So you might be wondering, how is it that we can prepare for this e-invoice exchange framework? Next slide, please. Well, there's really three things that we want to impress upon you to start doing this year to get ready, even if you're not in the pilot. The first, of course, is to learn. And this is the first step right here today. We want you to become aware of what it is the pilot is and what it's going to do, and maybe even how you can participate when the time is right. And second, well, you want to digitize. This is, after all, an electronic invoice exchange network, not a paper, not a semi-electronic. This is a digital environment. So if you haven't automated yet, and let me correct that, if you haven't fully automated yet, get going. And third, as part of those digitization efforts, centralize your invoices. You want to be able to get them all in one place so that now you're able to do that exchange. So Anna, is there anything else organizations ought to be thinking about as they get ready for the e-invoice exchange environment?
One thing is, well, many things are important, but one especially is to think about the adoption. So this framework, like I said, it's based on the concept that it's easy and low cost way for every company to join. And it's built so that not every company needs to have an IT project to start with it. So the exchange framework is formed from access points that are your service providers, and those are the typical service providers that you might have already today, like your EDI partner, OCR, AP solution provider. They onboard all their customers, your companies, aboard to the framework, and they deal with the technical things. So most often you don't have to do any changes to anything. For example, with DoApp, every of our customers is already compatible. Even before the market pilot has started, they're already compatible, and they are just going to have to make the decision: do they want to be receiving invoices or not? And why wouldn't they? Because they're guaranteed to be cheaper. So
right.
what you have to now do is to make sure that your service provider is in this project.
Yeah. So I know that you're on the steering committee of the market of the market pilot. I'm curious, where do you see the project going from here? What's the global thinking?
So, like I said, this is kind of a good, good opportunity as the businesses are coming together to develop something together that has huge cost savings to everyone who is using it. So we have a big group of companies that have experience from the same kind of proven model from the other parts of the world, and now kind of we can easily implement those learnings in the US market. So there is kind of really good benefits, and we're going to gain kind of so much more with little effort by learning from others.
This is a really exciting opportunity for North America. I mean, we've just never had a group before come together from so many different stakeholder corners to be able to say, let's try and solve this problem. I think for the first time, we actually have a fighting chance against paper and emailed invoices. That brings us to our next trend for 2022, which is accounts payable becomes an information hub for the corporate enterprise. We have a poll question on this topic, which is about to be displayed on your screen. This time we want to know, how is enterprise demand for real-time visibility into your invoice data changed over the past 2 years? Are you getting significantly higher demand for your invoice data? Are you getting slightly higher demand for your invoice data? Is it unchanged? Well, maybe demand was already high, maybe it was already low. Are you getting slightly lower demand, or are you getting significantly lower demand? Nobody, I say, is calling or emailing you. I find that hard to believe. Take a moment to respond to the poll question on the screen by clicking the appropriate response and hitting submit. And we'll discuss the results in just a moment. And it seems to me accounts payable departments sit on a treasure trove of data. And yet a lot of those AP departments I talk to are still using spreadsheets and SharePoint and even pen and paper for managing this data. Is this what you find when you talk to AP leaders?
Surprisingly, I think it was a study that 87% of companies are in the data maturity level of the first or second step. So really in taking only first baby steps. So in that maturity model, thinking on how you are utilizing that data, or are you only doing reports every time for one specific purpose, or are you systematically using it to analyze, to find the bottlenecks, to do smarter things with it. And unfortunately, the percentages are so low and companies are so little using that, and they haven't taken the strategic decision to become data driven.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that be one of the fallouts of the events of the past 2 years. I think organizations have finally waken up that they have to get at that AP data. We asked our attendees, how has enterprise demand for real-time visibility in your invoice data changed over the past 2 years? 50% of you said you're experiencing significantly higher demand from corners of the business for what it is you process. Another 50% of you say it's unchanged. Well, if you are in that significantly higher demand category, you're not alone. Take a look at our next slide. A study done by the Institute of Finance and Management found that many organizations are experiencing greater demand for their invoice data. And that really doesn't surprise me when I consider how it is that businesses are using all that information. Take a look at our next slide. What we find is that AP data that we have is imperative to things like cash flow analysis. To be able to see in real time where we are with our accruals, to be able to drill down into data, to be able to uncover some of those cash flow trends. AP also helps us be able to get at spend management. We can instantly see amount of spend by supplier, maybe by category or business unit. And this really helps us get control over our spending. It helps us make more intelligent budget decisions. What's more, AP data can help the organization better manage its operations. And of course, as Anna spoke of earlier, it can help us identify transactions that seem suspicious and might indicate risk. So Anna, give me some real life examples of how it is that organizations are using the type of invoice data that DoApp is capturing.
Real life examples on it. Well, the bottleneck finding is one of the most important things. So we have new dashboards that have especially been designed for seeing the process automation, how it's happening, where you can improve. And this really is then showing you what and how you can utilize machine learning more. Other kind of stuff is that, for example, vendor analytics. When you're looking for the bottlenecks, it's very typical that you're actually looking at what we are doing wrong and what kind of things that is inside our corporation that we're bad with. But no, we should also focus to see how is the vendors and their performance and their actions affecting our ability to pay invoices fast and catch all the cash discounts.
Yeah, Mikko, earlier in your career, you were a CFO. Talk to me about how it is you used your AP department as this information hub that Anna and I are talking about.
Yeah, I guess the information hub is a really fancy word, but I think at times it's really simple from the perspective that because I've been the past is in the past, but I've always been kind of very forward looking now, and even in my role as CFO. So really kind of understanding from the past spending patterns, how does the future look like? I think the budget and forecasting use case is one of the most exciting ones for this data, because I mean, of course, you've got all the history, but I think the use case there really is that you can forecast the future, have very accurate budgets. And I think when you have visibility to all your vendor data, of course, it's a lot easier to control your spending, but at the same time, you can spot the anomalies really easy. That if you actually started to use a vendor, which you may think is not absolutely necessary, it's really easy to spot all those patterns from the data. So even like the simplest use case that you just have the pure visibility to your APM vendor data, I think that's probably even the most powerful one.
So let me ask you, Mikko, in that wider context of reporting and analytics, what should the role of accounts payable be?
Yeah, I think if you look at reporting and analytics, at times what we overlook is really the impact of getting your vendor invoices booked correctly to your business units, to your projects, and so forth. So that is actually where it all starts from. So I've heard a lot of times that go and fix your reporting, but you can't really fix your reporting if your source data isn't accurate. So I think that's kind of probably the most overlooked thing, that you really need to focus on the source, get that right. And I think starting with AP is a good idea, because that is where most of your purchase volume is. I guess if you look at the other spending items, I think we take for granted that our payroll is pretty much in shape and we're paying folks the right amount of salaries every month. But then AP and purchases, which is a large part, sometimes we overlook that.
That's right. If you're keying in data into your systems of record, chances are you're going to have bad data. That brings us to our fourth prediction for 2022. And this is going to be an important one for many AP professionals. It's that automation is going to make the AP function more fulfilling. Let's do our poll question. This time we want to know, what percentage of your day is spent on manual, repetitive tasks? You know, things like keying data, fixing errors, chasing down information, responding to supplier inquiries. How much of your day is that consuming? 75% or more? 50% to 74% of your day? 25% to 49% of your day? 1% to 25% of your day? Or none? You're all fulfilling tasks all day long. You're going to have to do a webinar yourself. Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen, and we're going to discuss the results in just a moment. So when you walk into AP departments, Anna, or these days when you talk to them over the phone and zoom into their departments, are they complaining about how much work they have to do these days in order to juggle their work-life balance and keep up with everything that's going on in the world?
Definitely, and I'm happy that in our webinar today we had 40% that are already using machine learning, but that's not usually what we see, and the focus still is a lot in just kind of the first step, which is getting that data from that invoice. It should be the other way around, that is not even a topic that you have to think about. But after you have all that data already captured, what happens then? How can you utilize it? How can you automate with that data, and how can you use that in your analytical analytics and in the reporting that you do? And I'm hoping that with the invoices we can find this and close this problem for once and for all, and then concentrate on the fulfilling tasks after.
Yeah, we asked our attendees what percentage of your day is spent on manual, repetitive tasks. 25% of the folks on the line are spending more than 75% of their day on that type of drudgery. Another 25% of our attendees say half to 3/4 of their day is spent on manual, repetitive tasks. Do not feel bad. On our next slide, you'll see that many organizations are spending lots of time on transaction processing. And as bad as it might be for rank and file accounts payable professionals, the reality is that even AP managers are getting bogged down by all this manual activity. The Institute of Finance and Management finds that the typical AP manager spends more of their workday on manual repetitive tasks than they do on the managerial tasks that they were hired to perform. Things like hiring and training staff or upskilling staff. Well, this has got to beg the question, what the devil are we doing all day? What are we spending our time on? Well, the next slide gives us a snapshot. It shows us just some of the activities that take so much of our day. And the common denominator in so many of these activities is that they boil down to paper and manual processes. So what would happen? What would happen if we could free this work up? If we could use technologies such as machine learning, which we discussed earlier, to start automating these processes? Well, many people are fearful that this would spell the end of their job. An interesting study from just last year, though, should put those fears to rest. Next slide. When they were asked what it is they would have staff do if they weren't bogged down by manual activities, well, CFOs said they'd put them into new positions and into higher value work. And in many cases, they'd even train them to get them to be able to do different activities. And this really speaks to the changing nature, not just of accounts payable, but of back office tasks overall. Next slide. Businesses now realize that if they could just eliminate all those manual tasks, now their AP teams will have more time for all those things that we push to the back burner, the things we never have time for. Things like analyzing data, as Miko was talking about, collaborating with procurement and treasury to maybe maximize spend or find new ways to optimize our payment mix. They might even get on the phone and start building relationships with suppliers. They might be looking for new ways to capture early payment discounts. And in many cases, AP professionals could spend more time learning new skills so they could get back to the finance tasks they were hired to in the first place. So Mikko, I've got to ask you, can you give me some examples of what it is that automation does to free up all this time we're talking about here? What are some of the things I won't have to do if I had a do-app system?
Yeah, I think at the conceptual level, if we think about a finance organization, there's always this notion that you actually got to do the value added stuff. And then there's that the reality is that you're actually working with the data entry part. And what I always thought is that, okay, it's actually up to the management to fix the data entry part with automation. It could be AP automation. It could be some other form of AP automation to make sure that you can actually spend the time where you're told to spend it. So I think it doesn't happen like by itself, but you really need to drive the change. And I think that even though, as you were mentioning earlier, some folks may be worried that am I going to lose my job when we automate AP, that's not the case we're seeing at all, but rather you're actually having opportunities that you didn't know that existed before, and even making the manager a lot more happier because now you can focus on the exceptions, improve things, analyze. I think that's kind of the bottom of it.
Yeah, so you're a former CFO. How does freeing up staff to these value-added activities you're talking about, how does that help drive growth? After all, that is the CFO's number one priority these days.
Yeah, I think if you kind of look at companies, the ones that have really figured out their finance processes and maybe admin processes in general, it just seems to be that when you kind of sort it out in a way, the basics, that kind of means that in the company overall, you're really focused on growth and improvement. And I think AP is just part of that. And you may be right that, okay, I've been asking myself at times that, okay, if we're fixing this AP process, does it mean that our revenue is going to increase 10%? Maybe not. But when it's going to increase that 10% or 100%, then you want to make sure that your process is working because then you're ready to scale up. And it doesn't mean that the kind of first answer is that let's get more people because you've already automated. You got the process ready for the growth. So I think that's probably the most meaningful use case.
Yeah, and we intuitively know that none of this is good, right? Shuffling paper and keying data and chasing down information all day. Who wants to do any of that? The question I think the folks on the line are wondering about is, how do I get started? How can I start moving my staff to focus on smarter activities as we're talking about today?
The practical things on how to get that done, how to actually achieve the automation of those boring repeating tasks is to standardize and then automate. Everything that you can standardize, you can always automate. And kind of going through the processes very practically and looking for everything that you can put in the same cookie cutter, those are the most easiest cases to start working with. Then you will have a certain percentage of things that you cannot do anything about. But usually over time, when you have those less, you start again seeing a new way to standardize even the remaining items. And kind of what kind of actions needs to be taken also to start doing this. Sometimes I don't really like it when automation is used as a threat in a way that okay, automation is going to take your job, or especially now if it's politicized in a way that automation is replacing the Great Resignation. I think that if we go 100 years back, what AP was doing then, or what finance was doing then, everything has been automated long ago. What we were doing back then, and still we found the new things to do, and the same thing will continue to happen. Work evolves, and we as people evolve with it.
Yeah, machine learning, electronic invoicing, information hub, transforming the AP role. These are the 4 bold predictions that the 3 of us have for accounts payable for 2022. But when we look a little further out, when we think about the future of accounts payable, the three of us have a really radical idea. Next slide. We believe that emerging technologies are going to radically transform accounts payable, so it's unrecognizable from the task it is today. Next slide. Because when you start combining the technologies and concepts we've been talking about today, it starts to conjure up the possibility, well, what if businesses didn't need to exchange invoices or remittance data to buy and pay for goods and services? What if that data and those payments could be exchanged in a frictionless manner between systems of record? And now we've really transformed accounts payable and how it is that businesses buy and pay for goods. Next slide, please. That's what's on our minds. Now let's find out what's on your minds. If you have a question for Anna or Mikko, go ahead. Use the questions tab on the lower right-hand side of your screen to submit them to me now. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. Anna, one of our attendees wants to know, so what should I be looking for in an accounts payable solution to help ensure that it will eliminate those manual tasks you were just speaking about?
Well, the easy things are that's definitely first define from your own process what is taking most time. It usually is those, for example, keying in parts of the process, or for example, that there is a lot of coding or matching or something that you have to do manually too much. Recognizing what are the top 3 of the time-consuming things. When you're shopping for that AP solution, concentrate on those items. And especially if there is, for example, industry-specific things that you have. For example, there is its own difficulties in being in retail business or manufacturing. Make sure that the AP solution is supporting those and they're supporting your ERP system. You don't want to be there with interfaces that don't work, for example, or something that it just isn't compatible with your overall ecosystem.
Mikko, another attendee writes, do you have any tips for selling AP automation to my senior management?
Yeah, I guess we gave a lot of reasons already, but I think that just to take the concrete example that, hey, you've been asking for these reports and you're telling us all the time that we're closing our books 10 days after the month, and get me an AP automation solution and we're done in 5 days. I think that is the unique selling point. And we're just seeing that from some of our clients too, that or not really clients, but prospects, that we get the kind of answer that we would do this, but we're kind of constantly closing our books. And I think we all want to get out of that. We really want to get the automation in place, cut half the monthly closing time. And I think that's probably the kind of key thing there, that you will save time. And what sometimes goes unnoticed actually is that you're also going to save a lot of time from the rest of the organization, because you don't need to chase for the approvals. You don't need to be emailing folks and they don't need to answer those emails. So I'd say the time saving across the process is probably the most unique selling point.
And we have another question for, sorry, go ahead.
Can I, what I've learned that nothing else works better with senior management than facts and figures. So it's all math and kind of do the calculation. AP automation pays back, and it pays it back fast, and it's easy to prove to your senior management.
So that's how you manage Mikko, I assume.
Exactly.
Another question from an attendee, Anna. They want to know, does DoApp have an OCR tool to help automate the voucher of invoices?
Absolutely, of course. So it is very important still in the market, though the e-invoices are coming too. But as we have seen in other areas of the world, there is a long tail still of OCRing. And when there is smaller mom-pop stores, you will have to have something easy to go along with those e-invoices.
I saw a couple of questions from attendees wondering how they could learn more about DoApp. Well, if you'd like to schedule a demonstration of the solution that Anna and Mikko spoke about today, use the link on your screen to go ahead and do so. And that will be our final word. Mikko, Anna, thank you so much for sharing all your insights with us today. And thank all of you for taking time out of your busy days to join us. On behalf of DoApp, this is Mark Brousseau. Hope to speak with you all again soon.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.